The planet that we live in is mainly composed of water. About 71% of the Earth's surface is water, while the other 29% is land. Basically, water can be found anywhere in oceans, glaciers, rivers, lakes, air, soil, and even in living tissues. Water is very essential to us. All living things need water in order to survive. Take note that our body is about 60% water. So, us humans need to consume a large amount of water to survive. Did you know that only less than 2.7% of our Earth's water is fresh water? And most of it is frozen and in the ground. So we have limited supply of drinkable water. That's why it is very important to conserve water. Water is essential for everyday use. Now, let's familiarize ourselves on how the cycle of water occurs. The continuous movement of water in the biosphere is called hydrologic cycle. The Earth's water cycle is the global mechanism by which water moves from the air to the Earth, eventually back to the atmosphere. Let's discuss the three major processes of water cycle. It begins with evaporation. Water evaporates originating from the oceans. If the vapor is cooled to its dew point, condensation will occur. These droplets will grow large enough to fall on the Earth, and we call this precipitation. About 2/3 of the precipitation that reaches the land surface is returned to the atmosphere by evaporation. The remainder of the precipitation returns ultimately to the ocean through surface or underground channels. From these two types of sources, groundwater and surface water, available supplies are derived. Surface water consists of fresh water that flows and collects in rivers, lakes, or reservoirs. Groundwater, on the other hand, collects in porous layers of underground rocks known as aquifers. A great portion of this water is accumulated over geologic time and is renewed by rain percolation. Because of its location, groundwater cannot be easily recharged, or not at all, once it is depleted. Thus, resource sustainability depends on proper management so that the available water supply will not be withdrawn above the replenishment levels.
Did you know that in July 2004, census of Philippine population is 86.2 million and projected to reach 100 million in 14 years? The current population growth rate is 2.71% or 3 persons born per minute. Existing settlement patterns show that 48.05% of the population live in urban areas, while another fact, there are about 85,000 manufacturing industries in the Philippines, with Metro Manila as the prime industrial region, accounting for about 52% of the total manufacturing establishments. These establishments are classified into 30 major industrial groups. Food manufacturing constitutes the biggest number of manufacturing establishments in the country.
The rapid increase in population, urbanization, and industrialization reduce the quality of Philippine waters, especially in densely populated areas and regions of industrial and agricultural activities. The discharge of domestic and industrial wastewater and agricultural runoff has caused extensive pollution of the receiving water bodies. This effluent is in the form of raw sewage, detergents, fertilizer, heavy metals, chemical products, oils, and even solid waste. Each of these pollutants has a different noxious effect. Nearly 2.2 million metric tons of organic pollution are produced annually by domestic, 48%, industrial, 15% sectors. In the four water critical regions, water pollution is dominated by domestic and industrial sources. Untreated wastewater affects health by spreading disease-causing bacteria and viruses. Diseases caused by poor water include gastroenteritis, diarrhea, typhoid, cholera, dysentery, hepatitis, and more recently, severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS. The number of water-related health outbreaks, including deaths, reported in newspapers is going up. However, awareness regarding the need for improved sanitation and water pollution control reflected by the willingness to pay and connection to a sewerage system where they are easily available, is very low.
Did you know that our country is abundantly endowed with water resources? These include rainfall, surface water resources, rivers, lakes, reservoir, and groundwater resources. In fact, our country has about 18 major river basins, 421 principal rivers, with drainage areas ranging from 40 to 25,469 square kilometers, 59 natural lakes, numerous individual streams, and 4 major groundwater reservoirs, whose areas range from 6,000 to 10,200 square kilometers, which, when combined with other smaller reservoirs identified, would aggregate to an area of about 50,000 square kilometers. Groundwater resources are continuously recharged by rain and seepage from rivers and lakes. As a tropical country, rainfall ranges from 1,000 to 4,000 millimeters per year, of which 1,000 to 2,000 millimeters are collected as runoff by a natural topography. In our country, the 4 major groundwater reservoirs are in Cagayan, Central Luzon, Egusan, and Cotabato. There are 438 major dams and 423 smaller dams. Dams and reservoirs are mainly used for water storage, water supply, irrigation, regulation of food, and hydropower. Theoretically, the freshwater storage capacity and the high rate of precipitation assure us an adequate supply for agricultural, industrial, and domestic uses. However, seasonal variations are considerable and geographic distribution is biased, often resulting in water shortages in highly populated areas, especially during the dry season. According to the 2005 Little Green Data Book of the World Bank, 1 out of 5 Filipinos does not get water from formal sources. Only 77% of the rural population and 90% of those in urban areas have access to an improved water source, and only 44% have direct house connections. Those without house connections access water from wells, springs, communal faucets, and from small-scale informal providers.
In our country, supply and delivery of potable water in different parts of the country is the responsibility of various government agencies and water utilities. Metro Manila is being served primarily by the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System, also known as MWSS. Through its two private concessionaries, the Manila Water Services Incorporated and the Manila Water Company, and by some private companies serving subdivisions. Water supply comes mainly from surface water. Metro Manila has 4 water treatment plants, namely Balara Treatment Plants 1 and 2, and the La Mesa Water Treatment Plants 1 and 2.
Did you know that Metro Manila, Metro Cebu, Davao, Baguio City, Angeles City, Bacolod City, Iloilo City, Cagayan de Oro City, and Zamboanga City are identified as 9 water-critical urbanized areas where water is consumed intensively by National Water Regulatory Board,
Let's discuss the major problems concerning water use and scarcity. One of these disparities between water supply and demand on where water resources are unevenly distributed throughout the country, often resulting in water shortages in highly populated areas, especially during dry season. Then, the next problems are the lack of water allocation formula. Corporations also directly compete with the people for the control and use of available freshwater resources. Weak water use regulation and enforcement. Worsen inefficiency in water usage by the absence of regulations, economic incentives, and institutional arrangements needed to promote water conservation and rational use of water. Depletion of groundwater resources due to the indiscriminate use of groundwater wells for residential and industrial areas, and the lack of an appropriate institutional framework to address issues of development and management of water and related resources.
Water can be useful for industrial activities. The use of water for industrial purposes includes the utilization of water in factories, industrial plants and mines, and the use of water as an ingredient of a finished product. Industries that are found to be water intensive are involved in the manufacturing of food and dairy, pulp and chemical products, and textile materials. These industries are usually found in the National Capital Region, Calabar Zone, and Region 3. In a study by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, or UNIDO, in 1999, the intensive use of water in industry is critical in terms of the production of hazardous waste. Thousands of tons solvent wastes, heavy metals, lubricants, and intractable waste are improperly disposed of annually in Metro Manila.